Welcome to the Busy Signal. My name is Jim, and this is my podcast where I'll be paying homage to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I'll be looking back at all things nostalgic that have either gone extinct or are quickly going that way. Today, episode 1, we'll go back and remember payphones. Yeah, remember payphones? They were a big deal. This was our lifeline. This was how we had access to a phone wherever we went, as opposed to nowadays, obviously. Before we all had cell phones in our pockets, payphones were everywhere. Street corners, malls, grocery stores, gas stations, random sketch places, but there was always a payphone somewhere. If you needed to make a call and you were out, you immediately started looking around for a payphone sign. Yeah, and you knew the usual places where they might be. You'd reach in your pocket, you'd pull out some change, drop a couple dimes in there, and make a phone call. Today, we all walk around and wonder how we survived without cell phones. Well, payphones, this is how we survived, and we did fine, by the way. I mentioned that you had to put change in there to make a phone call. You couldn't just pick up the phone, dial, and then you're connected. You had to drop some money in there. And that presented a challenge sometimes, like maybe you didn't have change. So first thing you did was check the coin return. Sometimes you were lucky. You'd dig your finger in that coin return and there would be change. And it would be enough to make a phone call because the person before you put too much change in, walked away after they hung up the phone, and didn't hear that their change had dropped into the coin return. Lucky you. Or you could call collect. You could call, for instance, 1-800-COLLECT, and they would ask you to say your name, and then they'd call the person you're trying to call and tell the person you have a collect call from Jim. Would you accept the charges? And that person has to say yes. And now you're talking to that person and they understand they're paying for your call to them. Or you could hack your collect call. With those precious few seconds that you had to state your name for the other person, you could rattle off your abbreviated message as if you were the Micro Machines guy. So that when the collect call operator spoke to the party you're calling, they would say, you have a call from, and all of a sudden you'd hear, hey mom, I'm here, I need a ride. Or, we had a baby, it's a boy. Shout out to anybody who gets that reference. So now the person you're trying to call heard your message, doesn't even have to pay for it. They hang up and they know, hey, it's time to go pick up Jim because it's time to come home. Or you could just carry a prepaid calling card with you. Remember those? Those were like really popular in like the late 90s. You know, they were in like grocery stores or convenience stores and you could buy a card that had like $30 on it, $25, $50, $100. And you would call the number on the card and then they would ask you to put in this like 16-digit PIN number. And then you would call the number you're trying to call and it was paid for on the card. You would just be drawing money from the card until you ran out of money on the card and you would have to buy another card. Payphones were all right. We made them work for us. You know, we carried change. We remembered phone numbers. We hacked our collect calls. We made it work. There were some limitations to the payphones. Obviously, broken phones. You'd make a phone call, you'd pick up the receiver, and no dial tone. Nothing. Or broken physically, like some nut job went to town on a phone and the receiver was ripped off, or the receiver was broken, or the numbers were bashed in. That was always a shame. Sometimes you'd have to wait for a phone. There'd probably be only one phone in the vicinity, or maybe one phone that works, and somebody'd be having a crazy long conversation on it. Well, that was annoying. Maybe it was raining or snowing or just really poor weather, and there was only one phone around, and it was like outside and not sheltered. Phone booths were good for that. If you found a phone booth, that was good. I always felt like it was hard to get in and out of phone booths, like those doors always stuck. And then there was gross phones. You pick up a phone and why is it slimy? Why is it slick? Why is this wet? We never really thought about that too much back in the day. You just pick up the receiver, jam it to your face, put the receiver up to your mouth and make your phone call. But we never really thought about who used it before, how many people have used it, how old is this phone? Has anybody ever come by to clean the receiver? The answer is no. So maybe there was a risk using payphones in that way back in the day, but it never stopped us. It's obvious that the need to drop a dime is just not there anymore. The need for payphones doesn't exist. These days, a payphone sighting is like stumbling across an ancient relic from a past civilization. It's an instant selfie opportunity to share with the world on the very device that made the payphone obsolete. So the next time you stumble across the shell of a payphone or super rare complete payphone, or even more super rare, a complete payphone that works, take a picture. Share it on the socials and tag Busy Signal Cast. Let's see how many payphones are still out there and where they are. As a matter of fact, I recently stumbled across the shell of a phone, and I will share that on Busy Signal Cast on Insta and anywhere else that you can find Busy Signal Cast on socials. So that's it. This has been fun going back and remembering payphones. Maybe we unlocked a couple memories with prepaid cards or hacking a collect call. But just thanks again for listening. Give Busy Signal a subscribe and like on the socials. Give it a rating wherever you get your pods. And until next time, reach out and touch the past.